Ladies and gentlemen, right now, someone watching this is standing at the edge of a life-altering shift. You've felt the tension, the warfare, the confusion. But what if I told you those are not signs of defeat, but divine signs that God is preparing you for a major breakthrough? There are moments in the spiritual realm when pressure intensifies in a way that feels almost unbearable. It surrounds you, presses in from every side, and leaves you wondering if you've somehow missed God's direction. But this kind of pressure isn't a punishment. It's a sign. In the spirit, pressure is often the last thing that comes before breakthrough. It's the squeezing of the oil from the olive, the crushing of the grape before new wine is released. You feel the weight because something divine is being produced inside of you. What looks like chaos in the natural is actually alignment in the supernatural. Heaven is orchestrating a moment of release, but first there must be a stretching. The enemy increases resistance, not because you're going the wrong way, but because you're walking straight into your God-ordained destiny. The darkness senses what's coming and tries to discourage you before you see it. In the Bible, we are said that trials produce perseverance, and perseverance builds character. That means pressure is not without purpose. It's a process that refines, sharpens, and matures the believer for the next level. There's a heavenly pattern here. Joseph faced pressure in a pit and in prison before standing in Pharaoh's palace. David faced pressure in caves before being crowned king. Even Jesus felt the weight in Gethsemane, sweating drops of blood under the pressure of his calling before stepping into resurrection power. So if you feel like you're surrounded, crushed, misunderstood, or even overlooked, you are in the company of those God has chosen to elevate. Sometimes pressure will isolate you. Friends disappear, doors close, and things you used to rely on break down. But it's not rejection, it's reduction. God is trimming away what can't go with you. He's silencing voices so you can hear his whisper. In the Bible, we are said that gold is refined in the fire. Fire brings clarity. Pressure brings depth. And while it may feel like you're losing control, what's actually happening is surrender, where his strength is made perfect in your weakness. There's a kind of pressure that causes things to break, but there is also a kind that causes birth. That is the pressure you're under. God is not trying to crush you. He's trying to push something through you, a calling, a ministry, a new dimension of faith. The warfare has increased because you're closer now than you've ever been. Heaven is leaning in. Angels are on assignment. And while your flesh may feel weak, your spirit is growing stronger. You are being formed, not forgotten. You are being forged, not forsaken. God is not silent because he's absent. He's silent because he's working behind the scenes, aligning your breakthrough with perfect precision. In the Bible, we are said that those who wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength, mount up with wings like eagles. You're not about to fall apart. You're about to rise. Everything seemed to be going according to plan until suddenly it wasn't. What once felt familiar now feels foreign. Doors that used to open with ease are now sealed shut. People you were once close to begin to drift away without warning or explanation. Opportunities that looked promising suddenly vanish. It's not chaos, it's divine disruption. When God is preparing you for breakthrough, he often allows the things that brought you comfort to become uncomfortable. He disrupts the ordinary to prepare you for the extraordinary. It's easy to misunderstand this season and question what you did wrong, but what if the shift isn't about failure? What if it's about positioning? Because God isn't trying to ruin your rhythm. He's trying to create a new one that aligns with the sound of heaven. In the Bible, we are said that God led Abraham away from everything familiar, his land, his family, his comfort zone, into a place he did not know. And it was there in the unknown that covenant was birthed. God's pattern has always been to disrupt before he establishes. He shook the foundations of Paul's life on the road to Damascus. He disrupted Peter's routine fishing trip with a divine call to become a fisher of men. Every great move of God begins with a breaking of routine. So when you feel like everything is shifting beneath your feet, know that heaven is at work. Divine disruption is uncomfortable because it removes your ability to rely on natural understanding. It creates a space where faith is no longer optional. It's essential. You can't plan your way through it. You can't analyze your way out of it. You have to lean in and trust that God knows what he's doing even when you don't. In the Bible, we are said to trust in the Lord with all our heart and lean not on our own understanding. This is the moment where understanding fails, but revelation takes root. What you thought was a detour is actually a divine recalibration. Sometimes God closes doors, not because they're bad, but because they're too small. What satisfied you in one season can limit you in the next. He will let what used to work stop working just to stir your hunger. The shaking is not sent to destroy you. It's sent to awaken you. You are not being punished. You are being pulled into alignment. God is rerouting your destiny because what's ahead requires a new level of obedience, sensitivity, and trust. Even the storms you face are part of the divine disruption. In the Bible, we are said that when the disciples were caught in a violent storm, it was Jesus himself who had sent them into the boat. He didn't prevent the wind, he used it to reveal his authority. When God allows the winds of change to rise, it's because he's about to reveal his power in a way you've never seen. What feels like delay is actually design. What feels like loss is divine strategy. He's not removing things to take something from you. He's clearing space for what he's about to give you. There comes a point in your walk with God when something shifts deep within you. You begin to sense things you never noticed before. Your spiritual ears tune into sounds you hadn't heard. You wake up in the middle of the night with an unshakable awareness that God is calling you deeper. It's not anxiety, it's not overthinking, it's divine sensitivity. The Holy Spirit begins to stir your spirit and awaken your discernment. What used to feel normal now feels out of alignment. What used to entertain you now grieves you. Your heart becomes tender to the things of heaven. It's a sign that God is preparing you for a breakthrough that cannot be accessed by flesh alone. You are being recalibrated to recognize his movement and hear his whisper in a way you've never experienced before. This kind of spiritual sensitivity is not something you can manufacture. It's birthed in the secret place, cultivated in surrender, and often sharpened through solitude. You find yourself more drawn to quiet moments with God than public distractions. Worship becomes more than a song, it becomes a lifeline. His presence becomes your priority. In Bible, we are said that deep calls unto deep, and in this season, the depth of God is calling to the depth in you. The noise of the world begins to lose its hold. Your hunger shifts. You stop craving approval and start craving encounter. When God begins to prepare you for something greater, he awakens your spirit to perceive what your natural mind can't understand. In Bible, we are said that the natural man does not receive the things of the Spirit of God, for they are spiritually discerned. That's why some people around you may not understand this hunger rising within you. They don't see what you're sensing, but you know something is changing. You feel a holy tension in your spirit, a pull to go higher, to go deeper, to let go of the familiar and step into the unknown with God. It's not just about hearing God's voice, it's about becoming so tuned in that even the slightest nudge moves you. The Spirit starts to highlight things in your life, in conversations, even in your dream. You start receiving confirmation through unexpected places. Your spiritual eyes are opening, and God begins to speak through signs, impressions, and divine appointments. In Bible, we are said that his sheep know his voice. You're being trained to recognize it, not just in church, but in the everyday moments, in the stillness and in the fire. Even your emotions begin to change. You feel a deeper compassion for people, a greater burden for the lost, and an urgency that you can't explain. You might cry during worship when you didn't before. You might feel heavy in your spirit when others are laughing. It's not that something is wrong, it's that you are becoming spiritually awake. You're stepping into the frequency of heaven, and God is preparing you to carry something that requires full sensitivity to his spirit. This is not a random phase. It's divine preparation. Your spirit is in training for a move of God that will not be led by intellect, but by revelation. And this sensitivity is your invitation into that next dimension. There are seasons when it feels as though God has pulled you into a place of isolation. People you once relied on begin to fade from your life, and the things that once brought you comfort now feel distant and empty. It's not punishment, though it may feel like it at times. This is divine isolation, a sacred moment where God pulls you aside to refine, prepare, and speak to you in ways you cannot hear in the noise of the world. When you enter this season, it feels like you're being set apart, cut off from the distractions. And in those moments, it's easy to question why you're being separated. But in reality, God is not pushing you away. He's pulling you closer. He's positioning you for something greater, something far beyond what you can see with your natural eyes. In Bible, we are said that there is a time for everything. And sometimes that includes a time for solitude. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness, alone with God, before he was sent to confront Pharaoh and lead God's people out of Egypt. It wasn't a punishment, it was preparation. David was anointed as king, but had to spend years running for his life in caves and hiding from Saul before he could step into his destiny. Joseph was isolated in a pit and then in prison, seemingly forgotten. But God was preparing him to rule Egypt. Isolation is not about abandonment. It's about divine instruction. It's a time when God removes distractions so he can speak to you without interference. In the midst of isolation, God often reveals his heart and his plans in ways that aren't possible when you're surrounded by the noise and opinions of others. In the Bible, we are said that God speaks in the quiet places. He will meet you in your way. He will draw near to you in the silence. And though it may seem as though you're alone, you're never truly isolated when you're in God's presence. He's using this time to shape you, to refine your character, and to deepen your intimacy with him. He's using the solitude to stir up the well of his spirit within you. In this season, your dependency shifts. You no longer lean on the opinions of others or the approval of the world. You begin to rely solely on God's voice. In Bible, we are said that those who wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. When God isolates you, it's an invitation to learn to wait on him, to trust him even when you can't see the full picture. When you're alone with God, he begins to show you the areas in your heart that need healing, the dreams that need to be revived, and the gifts that need to be cultivated. It's during this time that God prepares you to carry the weight of the calling on your life. The wilderness season, though painful, is often where you receive the greatest impartation. God builds resilience in you when there is no one to encourage you but him. He teaches you how to fight battles with his word, how to worship in the midst of hardship, and how to stand firm in your identity. In Bible, we are said that the testing of our faith produces endurance. This time of isolation is a season of building endurance in your spirit. It's where you learn to trust that God is with you even when it feels like no one else is around. In this place of solitude, you are not being abandoned. You are being prepared. God is not distant. He is refining, renewing, and recalibrating you for the next season of your life. He is strengthening you in the secret place so you can stand strong when the public breakthrough comes. Isolation is not the end of the story. It's the beginning of a new level of intimacy with God that will prepare you to carry the weight of your destiny. There are seasons in your life when it seems like you're being pulled into isolation. You start to notice the relationships around you shifting, and it feels as though people you once leaned on are suddenly distant. The things that once filled your time and energy now feel empty. And you may even begin to feel abandoned by those you thought would always be by your side. But this isolation is not a punishment. It's a divine set-apartness. God, in his wisdom, sometimes allows this to happen because he knows that in these moments, he can speak to you in ways that would not be possible if you were still caught up in the noise of the world. In this season, God is pulling you aside to refine you, to reveal things to you, and to prepare you for the breakthrough that is about to come. In Bible, we are said that God often works in seasons of separation. Think about the many times in Scripture when God took his servants into isolation to prepare them for their destinies. Moses was in the wilderness for 40 years, not in idle waste, but in preparation for his mission to free God's people from Egypt. It was in that wilderness that God shaped Moses into the leader who would confront Pharaoh. David, anointed king as a young boy, spent years hiding in caves, running for his life and being surrounded by people who were not his own before he ever stepped into the kingship. Even Jesus himself withdrew to the wilderness after his baptism to be tested, refined, and empowered by the Holy Spirit before he began his public ministry. Isolation is part of God's preparation process. When you're isolated, the voices of the world fade away and you're left with only the voice of God. In Bible, we are said that God speaks in the quiet places, and sometimes he needs to remove distractions so that you can hear his whisper. Isolation is not abandonment, is God's invitation to go deeper with him, to spend intimate time in his presence, where he can mold and shape you without interruption. In these moments, he reveals areas in your heart that need healing, strengthens the areas that have been broken, and deepens your trust in him. You may feel like you're alone, but in reality, you are never alone in these seasons. God is with you, even in the silence. He has not forsaken you. He is working behind the scenes, preparing you in ways you can't yet see. You may be feeling disconnected, but God is reconnecting you to his will and purpose for your life. Just as the Lord prepared David in the caves, he is preparing you for something great in the secret place. In Bible, we are said that those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. Waiting in isolation is not about passivity. It's a divine strengthening process. God uses these times to build endurance and to train your heart to depend fully on him. You are not waiting in vain. In isolation, God teaches you to rely solely on him, to trust his timing and to lean into his word. When the public breakthrough comes, you will stand firm in your identity because it was during your isolation that God deepened your roots in him. Isolation also gives you the chance to rediscover who you are in God. You are not defined by the voices around you or the expectations of others. In these moments, God reaffirms your identity. He reminds you of the calling on your life and strengthens you to carry it out. Just like Jesus in the wilderness, you emerge from isolation with a stronger resolve, knowing exactly who you are and what you've been called to do. God does his greatest work in the secret place. It's in these moments of isolation where he builds the character, faith, and strength needed to carry the weight of your breakthrough. He's not ignoring you. You are being shaped for something greater. And isolation is the crucible where God is refining you into the person who can carry the breakthrough he is about to release. There are seasons in life when you feel like no one is noticing your efforts. You pour into things, give your best, and yet it seems like you're invisible to the people who could elevate you. You've been faithful, you've served diligently, and yet the spotlight never seems to shine your way. But in this season, when it feels like no one sees you, God is promoting you in secret. Hidden promotion is one of the most powerful yet misunderstood seasons of preparation. While the world looks for the outward signs of success, God is working in the quiet, hidden places. He's preparing you for the elevation that only He can bring. In Bible, we are said that God often chooses to promote in secret before releasing a public declaration. Think about David, who was anointed king in front of his brothers, but it wasn't until many years later that he actually stepped into the throne. During those years, he wasn't living in a palace or ruling over a nation. He was out in the fields tending sheep, forgotten by his own family. Yet even in that hidden place, God was preparing him for a kingship that would be recognized by all. The anointing was on him even when no one else saw it. God was preparing him in the secret places, refining his character and faith before he made the promotion public. This hidden promotion is often uncomfortable because it feels like you're doing everything right, but there's no outward recognition. But what you can't see is that God is building something deep in you during this time. He's refining your character, your patience, your trust, and your faith. In Bible, we are said that God does not look at the outward appearance, but at the heart. While others may see you as unnoticed or underqualified, God sees the potential He's been cultivating within you. You may not be on the stage, but you are being prepared for it in the hidden places. You are being promoted in ways that are not visible to the natural eye, but in the Spirit, God is elevating you. This season of hidden promotion requires a great deal of trust. You may not understand why things are happening the way they are, but in Bible we are said that we walk by faith, not by sight. Even when it looks like no progress is being made, trust that God is working behind the scenes, aligning things in your favor. His timing is perfect, and He knows exactly when to bring your promotion to the forefront. Even when you feel overlooked, God is preparing you for a moment that will take you from the back to the front, from the hidden to the seen. The key to understanding this hidden promotion is recognizing that God is more concerned with your heart and your integrity than with the recognition of men. In Bible, we are said that those who humble themselves will be exalted. God isn't looking for those who crave attention, but those who will remain faithful even when no one is watching. He's watching your faithfulness in the hidden places, and He is preparing you for a time when you will be elevated to a place of influence and responsibility. This is where God refines your character, develops your leadership, and builds your capacity to handle the weight of the promotion that's coming. Hidden promotion doesn't mean that you're forgotten. It means that you're being prepared for something greater. God is taking the time to build you up in ways that no one else can see, because He knows the magnitude of the blessing that is coming your way. He's developing the foundation of your heart so that when the public promotion comes, you won't be shaken by the pressure or the expectations. You will be strong enough to carry it because God has been building you up in secret where no one else could see. There comes a time in your journey when you begin to experience a favor that you can't explain. It's as if doors that should have stayed closed open effortlessly. Opportunities that should have passed you by begin to chase you down. People who have no reason to be for you begin to bless you and support you. You look at the situation and all you can say is, this can only be God. This is unexplainable favor, the kind of favor that doesn't make sense in the natural realm, but is undeniably the hand of God moving in your life. It's the kind of favor that shows up right when you need it most and takes you to places you could never reach on your own. In Bible, we are said that God's favor is not based on our merit or works, but His grace. It is given freely to those who are in right relationship with Him. Just as God extended favor to Noah in the midst of a wicked generation, and as He showed favor to Esther when she was called to deliver her people, He extends unexplainable favor to His children for His divine purpose. When God's favor is upon your life, it moves you into realms of influence that others can only dream of. You may have been overlooked, passed over, or told that you were unqualified, but when God's favor is on you, everything changes. Favor doesn't follow the world's rules. It doesn't follow the logic of what's fair or deserved. Favor comes from heaven and often chooses the unlikely person, the person who has no connections, no platform, no influence. In Bible, we are said that God chooses the foolish things of the world to confound the wise. He has a habit of using what seems weak or insignificant to bring about great breakthroughs. Favor doesn't always make sense, but it always makes a way. It takes you places you never thought you could go and opens doors that you couldn't even knock on if you tried. This unexplainable favor is designed to put you in a position where only God can get the glory. The favor of God doesn't just bring external blessings, it shifts things in the spirit. When God's favor rests on you, it gives you divine access, the same way He gave Joseph favor in Potiphar's house and then in prison. God will give you favor in places where it seems like you have no right to be. His favor will open doors that you've been praying for, and even doors that you never thought to ask for. People will look at your life and wonder why you have so much favor. The truth is, it's not about what you've done, but about what God is doing in and through you. In Bible, we are said that God's favor surrounds us like a shield. It goes before you, behind you, and all around you. It creates a protective hedge that nothing can penetrate. When God's favor is upon you, you don't have to fight for what's yours. You don't have to manipulate, force, or strive to make things happen. Favor will bring the right people into your life at the right time, open the right doors, and provide resources you never thought possible. It's the grace of God working on your behalf, positioning you for breakthrough, even when the natural world says it's impossible. Sometimes this favor will cause others to be confused, even angry. It may look like you're receiving preferential treatment, but in reality, God is preparing you for a greater purpose. Favor comes with responsibility. It doesn't mean that you're exempt from hardship or challenge. Rather, it means that God will walk you through those challenges and make a way when there seems to be no way. In Bible, we are said that we are favored in the midst of adversity. When God's favor is on your life, even the trials you face become stepping stones to greater things. Unexplainable favor is a sign that God is positioning you for something extraordinary. It's a signal that your breakthrough is on the horizon. While others might be striving, you'll be resting in His favor, knowing that it's not by your might or power, but by His Spirit that you will see His promises fulfilled. As you walk through your spiritual journey, there comes a moment when God begins to give you a new vision, a fresh perspective that transforms how you see the world, yourself, and your purpose. It's like you're handed a new set of eyes that can see beyond the natural realm and into the heart of God's plan for your life. This vision isn't just a fleeting thought or a passing dream. It is a divine impartation, a seed that is planted deep within you, growing and unfolding into something greater than you could have ever imagined. God begins to reveal His will for your life in ways that shift your entire outlook, reordering your priorities and bringing clarity to the next steps He has for you. In Bible, we are said that where there is no vision, the people perish. Vision is the key that opens up understanding, giving you direction in places where confusion once reigned. The new vision God gives you is not based on the world's standards or the circumstances around you. It is rooted in His purpose and destiny for your life. When God gives you new vision, He's showing you a future that is aligned with His plan, even when the current reality doesn't reflect it. It's a spiritual awakening that awakens your potential and calls you to a higher level of faith. Sometimes this new vision comes after a period of waiting, a time when you've sought God's will but haven't yet received the full picture. In the Bible, we are said that those who wait upon the Lord will renew their strength. Waiting on God isn't a passive activity. It's an active posture of surrender, trust, and expectancy. And in those moments, as you wait on Him, He imparts His vision into your spirit. When the time is right, He reveals His plans and purposes for your life, and it's as if the fog lifts and you can clearly see the path He has prepared for you. You begin to see not just where you are, but where you are going. You start to see your future as God sees it. This new vision also comes with a sense of urgency. When God opens your eyes to His plan for you, it stirs something deep inside. You can no longer stay in your comfort zone or continue living without purpose. In Bible, we are said that God's calling compels us to step out in faith, to trust Him even when we can't see the full picture. His vision for your life isn't just something for the future. It requires action now. This new vision becomes a driving force, propelling you forward into the destiny He has prepared for you. It challenges you to rise above the distractions and the limitations that have held you back in the past. The impartation of new vision also comes with divine wisdom. As you receive this fresh vision, God will also equip you with the understanding and the strategies needed to walk it out. In Bible, we are said that if any of us lacks wisdom, we can ask of God, who gives liberally and without reproach. The vision He gives is not just a lofty idea, but comes with practical insights, divine strategies, and the strength to carry it out. God doesn't just show you what He wants to do with your life. He also empowers you to do it. This vision is not limited by your past failures or your current limitations. In Bible, we are said that with God, nothing is impossible. The vision God gives you doesn't depend on your own abilities or resources. It depends entirely on His provision and His power. As you step out in faith, God will open doors that no man can shut, provide resources you didn't expect, and surround you with the right people to help you fulfill the vision He has placed in your heart. New vision also brings clarity and focus. In Bible, we are said that when we fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith, we are able to run with perseverance the race marked out for us. The vision God gives clears away the confusion and distractions, and you begin to see your purpose with crystal clarity. It's like a fresh breath of air that fills your spirit, allowing you to run toward the goal with renewed strength and determination. There are moments in life when it feels like the entire world is coming against you. It seems as though every obstacle, every setback, and every adversary is working in opposition to the very promises you hold in your heart. You step forward in faith, only to encounter resistance at every turn. But in these moments of great opposition, God is not only with you, He is strengthening you and preparing you for something greater. Opposition is often a sign that you are on the right path and that what God has promised you is just on the other side. The greater the opposition, the greater the breakthrough. In the Bible, we are said that many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers them out of them all. Opposition is not an indication that God has abandoned you. Rather, it's a sign that He is about to deliver you in a way that will bring glory to His name. The battle may be intense, but so is the victory that awaits you. When you are facing great opposition, You are being refined and strengthened, just as gold is refined in the fire. God allows you to go through the fire so that you can come out stronger, purer, and more equipped to carry the weight of your destiny. Look at the story of Nehemiah, who faced immense opposition while rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem. From mockery to threats to physical violence, Nehemiah and the people of God encountered opposition at every turn. Yet, in the face of adversity, Nehemiah did not retreat. He pressed forward, relying on the strength and wisdom of God. In the Bible, we are said that those who wait on the Lord will renew their strength. Nehemiah's strength came not from his own abilities, but from his deep trust in God's provision and promises. Even though the opposition was fierce, he knew that God had called him to complete the work, and he would not be deterred. In Bible, we are said that we are more than conquerors through him who loves us. This means that no matter how fierce the opposition, victory is assured because God fights for us. Opposition may look intimidating, but it is nothing compared to the power of God. The same God who delivered the Israelites from Pharaoh's army, who parted the Red Sea, and who shut the mouths of lions for Daniel, is the God who stands with you in the face of opposition. His power is limitless, and when he is on your side, no opposition can stand. When facing great opposition, it's important to remember that God's plans are never thwarted by the enemy. In Bible, we are said that no weapon formed against you will prosper. The enemy may try to block, hinder, or delay your progress, but God will always make a way. The opposition you face is simply the enemy's attempt to stop what God is about to do in your life. But what the enemy means for harm, God will use for good. Every obstacle is an opportunity for God's power to be displayed in a way that will bring glory to his name. Just as Jesus faced opposition throughout his ministry, from the Pharisees to the Roman authorities, he did not back down. He pressed forward, knowing that his mission was bigger than the opposition he faced. In Bible, we are said that Jesus overcame the world, and because he overcame, you too can overcome. You are not alone in your struggle. The same power that raised Christ from the dead is at work in you, strengthening you, enabling you to stand firm in the face of opposition. In Bible, we are said that God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. When opposition comes, it's easy to feel overwhelmed or fearful, but God's Spirit within you gives you the strength to stand strong. The victory is already secured in Christ. You simply need to walk it out in faith, trusting that he who began a good work in you will be faithful to complete it. Even in the face of opposition, you are being equipped for a victory that will testify to God's faithfulness and power in your life. When God calls you to a new level of breakthrough, there is one key that unlocks that door: radical obedience. This is not simply following God when it's convenient or when things are going according to your plans. Radical obedience requires a willingness to step out of your comfort zone, to trust God even when his instructions don't make sense, and to follow his leading no matter the cost. It's in these moments of radical obedience that you align yourself fully with God's will, and that's where the true breakthrough begins. In Bible, we are said that obedience is better than sacrifice. God desires our obedience, not just our offerings. Obedience isn't just about following commands. It's about aligning our hearts with God's purposes and his timing. When we obey, even when it doesn't make sense, we open the door for God to move in our lives in miraculous ways. Radical obedience might require you to give up something dear to you, to move in a direction you never anticipated, or to step into the unknown with nothing but God's word as your guide. But it's in this place of surrender that God does his greatest work. Look at the story of Abraham, who is called to sacrifice his promised son, Isaac. Imagine the faith required to obey God in this moment. Abraham had waited years for the promise of a son, and now God was asking him to give that son up. But in Bible we are said that Abraham, in his faith, did not hesitate. He trusted God completely, knowing that if God could bring life to Isaac, he could bring him back from the dead if necessary. Abraham's radical obedience was the key to unlocking the blessing that would follow. Because of his obedience, God made him the father of many nations, and the promise of descendants as numerous as the stars came to pass. This is the kind of obedience God is calling us to. It's the kind of obedience that doesn't count the cost, but moves forward in trust that God will provide, even when the path is unclear. In Bible, we are said that God is faithful to provide for those who are obedient to his call. When you step out in radical obedience, God's provision follows. His faithfulness becomes evident, and his power is made known in ways that you could never have imagined. Radical obedience is also about trusting God's timing. We often want things to happen on our terms, in our time, and according to our understanding. But God's timing is always perfect. In Bible, we are said that his ways are higher than our ways, and his thoughts are higher than our thoughts. Obedience means trusting that God's timing is the best timing, even when it doesn't line up with our expectations. Sometimes when God asks us to do something, we don't understand why or how it fits into the bigger picture. But in these moments, radical obedience requires us to trust that God sees the whole plan, and we're simply walking out the next step he has laid before us. The story of the Israelites crossing the Red Sea is a powerful example of radical obedience. When Moses stood before the Red Sea, the path ahead seemed impossible, but God commanded him to lift his staff and the sea parted. In Bible, we are said that the Israelites had to step into the water before they saw the miracle. They had to trust that God would do what he said, even when the way seemed blocked. When they obeyed, the miracle happened, and they walked through the sea on dry land. Radical obedience often requires taking that first step, even when it seems like there's no way forward. When you step out in faith, God will open doors that were once closed, and he will make a way where there seems to be none. Radical obedience also shifts the atmosphere around you. In Bible, we are said that when we are obedient to God, his blessing flows not just to us, but through us to those around us. Your obedience can bring breakthrough not only to your own life, but to the lives of your family, your community, and even nations. Just as the obedience of one man, Abraham, changed the course of history, your obedience has the power to change the course of events in your life and in the lives of those connected to you. God's calling may seem overwhelming at times, but in Bible, we are said that God never calls us to something he does not equip us for. Radical obedience is not about relying on your own strength or ability. It is about depending fully on God, trusting him to work through you, and knowing that he will provide everything you need to fulfill the calling he has placed on your life. My friends, the world is asleep. The streets are empty. But in the spirit realm, something is shifting. There is a divine moment when heaven bends low, when the courts of eternity are in session, and when destinies are rewritten. That moment is dawn. The world awakens slowly at dawn. The darkness begins to retreat, making way for the first light of morning. It is in this transition, in this sacred stillness, that something profound happens in the spirit realm. Dawn is not just the beginning of a new day. It is a divine moment, a window of time when heaven moves in extraordinary ways. Throughout history, dawn has held deep spiritual significance. It is not merely a shift from night to day, but a moment of divine visitation. In the Bible, we are said that God moves in the early hours, that his presence is near, and that those who seek him in the morning will find him. This is not a coincidence. There is something about the breaking of the day that aligns with the breaking of strongholds. Something about the rising sun that mirrors the rising power of God in a believer's life. The forces of darkness work hardest in the night, but as dawn approaches, their hold weakens. When the first rays of sunlight touch the earth, the realm of the Spirit shifts. Battles that seemed impossible in the midnight hour suddenly begin to turn. This is why we see throughout Scripture that God's mercy and intervention often manifest in the morning. When the Israelites stood before the Red Sea, trapped between Pharaoh's army and the waters, it was in the morning watch that the Lord looked down and created a path of escape. The night may hold struggles, but the dawn carries deliverance. Jesus himself understood this mystery. He would rise before the sun, retreating to desolate places to pray, meeting the Father in the quiet hours when distractions had not yet awakened. Why did he do this? Because he knew that the dawn is a time of divine alignment. The heavens are open, the voice of God is clear, and those who position themselves in prayer during these hours step into supernatural encounters. The Bible tells us that joy comes in the morning. Why? Because the weight of oppression, the heaviness of battle, the struggles of yesterday, they cannot withstand the power that is released at dawn. Even nature testifies to this mystery. Birds begin their songs before the sun fully rises. Creation stirs, responding to an unseen force that signals the arrival of new mercies. If the natural world understands this, how much more should we? The enemy knows that dawn is a dangerous time for his kingdom. That is why so many believers struggle to rise early for prayer. There is resistance because there is power. Those who discipline themselves to meet God at this hour experience breakthroughs that others only long for. This is the moment when answers are released, when chains are shattered, and when heaven draws near. Dawn is not just a time of the day, it is an invitation. It is a divine mystery, a secret weapon for those who desire to walk in supernatural victory. There are moments in life when heaven feels closer, when the atmosphere around us shifts and the presence of God becomes tangible. Dawn is one of those moments. It is not just a natural transition from night to day. It is a divine appointment, a sacred invitation to meet with the Creator before the world fully awakens. In the Bible, we are said that God seeks those who will rise early to seek Him, those who will prioritize Him above the noise of life, those who understand that there is power in the first moments of the day. From the beginning of time, God has chosen the early hours to speak, to reveal, and to manifest His glory. Abraham rose early to stand before the Lord. Moses ascended the mountain at dawn to receive the commandments, and Jacob encountered the divine just before the sun broke the horizon. These were not mere coincidences. They were moments of divine orchestration, moments when God chose to unveil His plans to those who were willing to seek Him in the quiet of the morning. There is something powerful about meeting God before anything else claims our attention. It is an act of faith, a declaration that He is first, that His presence is more important than sleep, more necessary than our own comfort. Jesus Himself demonstrated this truth before the crowds gathered, before the sick came to be healed, before the demands of ministry pressed upon Him. He withdrew in the early hours to pray. He knew that if He met the Father first, everything else in the day would be aligned. If the Son of God needed this divine appointment, how much more do we? The dawn carries an expectation, a sense of renewal, a promise that whatever happened yesterday does not have to dictate today. When the sun rises, it marks the beginning of something fresh, something untouched. That is why those who seek God in these hours often experience clarity, direction, and supernatural peace. The struggles that seemed overwhelming in the night lose their power in the light of morning. In the Bible, we are said that God's mercies are new every morning. This means that every dawn is an opportunity to start again, to receive fresh grace, to step into new blessings. The enemy wants to keep believers distracted, exhausted, and disconnected from this truth. That is why the battle to rise early and pray is so intense. The moment we determine to meet with God, everything seems to resist us: fatigue, distractions, even doubts. But those who press through, those who honor the appointment, will find that heaven responds. Dawn is not just the beginning of a new day, it is an open door. It is a moment where heaven and earth align, where prayers rise unhindered, where the presence of God meets those who are willing to seek Him first. Those who answer this call, who step into this divine appointment, will experience a level of intimacy and breakthrough that others only long for. There is a moment in every day when the heavens open in a unique and powerful way. It is not random, nor is it hidden from those who seek it. It happens at dawn, when the first light of morning breaks through the darkness. This is the hour when the gates of mercy swing wide, when God releases fresh grace upon the earth, when those who call upon Him can receive answers that were held back in the night. In the Bible, we are said that God's mercies are new every morning, that He refreshes His people with unfailing love as the day begins. This is not just a poetic idea. It is a spiritual principle, one that has been at work since the beginning of time. Throughout Scripture, we see that dawn is a time of divine intervention. When the Israelites stood trapped at the edge of the Red Sea, pursued by Pharaoh's army, the night was filled with fear and uncertainty. But in the morning watch, the Lord looked down upon the enemy and made a way through the sea. The waters stood as walls on either side, and God's people walked through on dry ground while their enemies were swallowed up behind them. It was at dawn that mercy spoke, that deliverance came, that the impossible became reality. Dawn is not only a time of breakthrough, it is a time of divine visitation. In the Bible, we are said that God meets with His people in the morning, that those who rise early to seek Him will find Him. When Moses ascended Mount Sinai to receive the commandments, it was in the early hours that God's presence descended in fire and glory. When the manna fell from heaven to sustain the children of Israel in the wilderness, it came with the morning dew. Mercy was literally waiting for them at the break of day. Those who gathered it received their portion, but those who ignored it missed out on the supernatural provision that God had ordained for them. The enemy knows the power of dawn. That is why he fights so hard to keep believers from seeking God in the early hours. He understands that when a person rises to pray at this time, chains are broken, destinies are shifted, and heaven's resources are released. He knows that this is the moment when the courts of heaven are in session, when prayers are heard with fresh urgency, when the mercy of God is poured out without measure. In the Bible, we are said that weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. This is not just about emotions, it is a spiritual law. The night represents struggle, delay, and opposition, but dawn represents the release of God's goodness. When we position ourselves to seek Him at this appointed time, we step into a divine exchange. Fear is replaced with faith, weakness with strength, and despair with fresh hope. The gates of mercy are open, and those who enter in will never leave empty-handed. From the beginning of time, dawn has been a moment of divine significance, a time when God moves in ways that shift history. Throughout the Bible, we see that breakthroughs, revelations, and supernatural interventions often take place as the first light of morning breaks the darkness. This is not a coincidence. It is a pattern, a spiritual law woven into creation itself. In the Bible, we are said that those who seek God early will find Him, that the morning brings fresh mercy, that joy replaces sorrow as the new day begins. There is something powerful about the transition from night to morning, something that opens the door for heaven's intervention. When Abraham stood before the Lord interceding for the city, it was in the early hours that he received divine instruction. When Jacob wrestled with the angel all through the night, it was at dawn that he received his blessing. He refused to let go until something changed. And as the sun began to rise, he was transformed. His name was changed, his destiny was shifted, and he walked away not just as a man, but as a nation. The breakthrough came with the morning light. When Israel stood before the walls of Jericho, the instructions were clear. For 6 days they marched in silence. But on the seventh day, at the dawn of the morning, the moment came to release the shout. The walls that had stood firm for generations came crashing down. The barriers that seemed unmovable gave way to the power of God. It was at the appointed time, in the early hours, that breakthrough was released. In the Bible, we are said that God watches over his word to perform it, that he moves according to his appointed times. When the children of Israel were bound in Egypt, the night was filled with oppression and bondage. But as dawn approached, God's deliverance came. The firstborn of Egypt fell, and the people of God walked out in freedom, carrying the spoils of their captors. The shift from darkness to light was not just a physical one. It was a prophetic picture of how God moves in the lives of his people. Even the resurrection of Jesus carried this pattern. The crucifixion brought darkness, the grave held silence, but on the third day, as the morning light began to rise, the stone was rolled away. Death lost its power, the grave lost its hold, and victory was revealed at dawn. Heaven had moved, and the greatest breakthrough in history was manifested as the sun rose over an empty tomb. The pattern is undeniable. Time and time again, God has chosen the dawn as the moment of his greatest moves. Whether it is deliverance, healing, or revelation, something is released in the early hours that cannot be accessed at any other time. Those who understand this mystery and align themselves with it position themselves for encounters that shift everything. The morning is not just another part of the day. It is a supernatural invitation to step into breakthrough. There is a realm beyond what the eyes can see, a dimension where divine assignments are carried out, where prayers are answered, and where battles are fought long before they manifest in the physical world. This realm is alive and active, and nowhere is this activity more intense than in the early hours of the morning. As the world sleeps, as the natural realm remains still, the unseen world is in motion. In the Bible, we are said that angels are ministering spirits sent to assist those who will inherit salvation. They move on assignment, carrying out God's will, delivering messages, enforcing his decrees, and fighting on behalf of his people. Dawn is a time when heaven engages with earth in a profound way. In the Bible, we are said that Jacob, while sleeping in the wilderness, had a vision of a ladder reaching from earth to heaven, with angels ascending and descending upon it. This was not a dream of the past, but a revelation of what happens in the unseen realm. Angels move between dimensions, carrying the answers to prayers, shifting circumstances, and breaking through demonic resistance. It is no coincidence that this vision happened at night, but it was at dawn that Jacob awoke with a realization. God had been in that place, and he had not even known it. There is a mystery in the early hours, a moment when spiritual activity intensifies, when those who are spiritually awake can perceive what heaven is doing. In the Bible, we are said that Daniel set his heart to seek God, and the answer was sent immediately, but it was delayed by a spiritual battle. The angel who carried the answer was opposed by demonic forces, and it was only through divine intervention that the breakthrough was released. This tells us something profound. Not every delay is natural. Not every unanswered prayer is because God has not spoken. Sometimes there is a battle in the unseen realm. And those who understand this will not give up when they don't see immediate results. They will press in. They will rise in the early hours to intercede. They will call upon the Lord while the heavens are active. When Jesus was in the garden about to face the cross, he found his disciples sleeping. He asked them to pray, to watch with him for even 1 hour, but they could not stay awake. Yet in that same moment, the unseen world was in motion. Angels came to strengthen him. A battle was taking place that no one could see, and those who were spiritually dull missed it. How many times has heaven been moving and we have been asleep? How many battles have been fought over our lives, our families, our destinies, while we remain unaware? The early hours are not ordinary. They are filled with movement, filled with assignments, filled with angelic intervention. Those who rise at dawn, who engage in prayer, who seek God in the secret place, align themselves with the activity of heaven. They become participants in divine moments, stepping into realms where supernatural victories are won before the day even begins. There is a time in the Spirit when heaven moves, a moment when divine mysteries are revealed to those who are awake to receive them. The dawn is not just a shift in the natural day, but a sacred threshold where the unseen becomes manifest, where the voice of God is clearer, and where those who seek him are ushered into revelation that others may never grasp. In the Bible, we are said that God speaks in the stillness, in the quiet places, away from the noise of the world. There is something about the early hours when distractions have not yet taken hold, when the mind is unburdened, when the soul is sensitive to the whisper of the divine. When Samuel was a young boy, he heard the voice of God calling his name in the quiet of the night. 3 times he mistook it for the voice of man, until Eli instructed him to say, "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening." It was in this moment that his destiny was sealed, that the call of God was revealed to him. The voice of God did not thunder in the middle of the day when the world was filled with activity. It came in the stillness, in the sacred quiet, where only those who are truly listening can hear. There are mysteries that God is waiting to release, revelations that will change the course of lives, but they are given to those who are awake to receive them. In the Bible, we are said that Jesus often withdrew to solitary places before the sun had risen, positioning himself to hear the Father. He did nothing apart from what he saw the Father doing, and his ability to walk in perfect alignment with heaven came from his time in the secret place. If the Son of God needed this, how much more do we? If the one who carried the fullness of the Spirit still chose to rise early and seek the presence of the Father, what does that say about the importance of meeting God at dawn? The secrets of the kingdom are not given to the casual seeker. They are given to those who hunger, to those who press in, to those who are willing to rise when the rest of the world sleeps. In the Bible, we are said that God does nothing without revealing his plans to his servants. He desires to share his wisdom, to give insight, to release strategies for victory, but these things are not found in the busyness of the day. They are released in the stillness of the morning when the heavens are open and the soul is ready to receive. There are answers that have been delayed, not because God has not spoken, but because the receiver has not been in position to hear. The mysteries of the kingdom are hidden in the early hours, waiting for those who will wake, those who will seek, those who will listen. The dawn is not just another part of the day. It is an invitation to step into divine revelation. There is a moment when the heavens open, when prayers that have been stored up reach their appointed time, and answers are released upon the earth. Dawn is that moment, the time when divine decrees are set into motion, when the will of God is established, and when those who have been waiting on him receive what has been prepared. In the Bible, we are said that we should seek the Lord while he may be found, and call upon him while he is near. There are moments when God draws close, when his presence is thick upon the earth, and those who discern these moments step into a supernatural flow where things that once seemed impossible suddenly come to pass. Throughout Scripture, we see the power of divine timing. When the Israelites were in bondage, their deliverance was not random, it was appointed. God had set a time, a specific dawn, when they would leave Egypt with the wealth of their oppressor. Until that moment came, they remained in waiting. But when the time arrived, nothing could hold them back. Pharaoh himself had to release them. There are moments in life when waiting turns into fulfillment, when prayers transition into testimonies, when the things spoken in secret are suddenly revealed in the open. In the Bible, we are said that though the vision tarries, we must wait for it will surely come and will not delay. There are prayers that seem to linger, requests that seem unanswered, but in reality, they are simply waiting for their appointed moment. Just as the sun never fails to rise at its set time, so too does God's word come to pass exactly when it is meant to. The dawn is a prophetic picture of how God moves. Night may feel endless, but the morning always comes. Delay may feel like denial, but when the appointed time arrives, nothing can stop what has been set in motion. When Jesus rose from the grave, it was not at just any time, it was at dawn. The greatest victory in history was not revealed in the middle of the night, nor in the height of the day, but in the quiet breaking of morning. The stone was rolled away, and what had been sealed in darkness was suddenly brought into the light. This is what happens when prayers reach their divine moment. This is what happens when heaven releases what has been prepared. In the Bible, we are said that weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. This is more than just a promise of relief. It is a revelation of how the kingdom operates. What has been prayed in the night, what has been believed in the waiting, is fulfilled at the appointed time. Those who rise at dawn, those who position themselves in prayer, those who understand the power of divine timing, will see the manifestation of what they have been contending for. The heavens move at dawn, and those who are awake to this reality will never miss their moment.